documentary, world-famous artist Ai Weiwei tries to capture the magnitude of the global refugee crisis, a crisis that's impacted nations across Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and America. Our culture correspondent Margit reports.
War, starvation, and poverty. Millions of people around the globe are risking death over land and water to find a better life. This is what Chinese artist Ai Weiwei explores in his new documentary film, Human Flow.
Being a refugee is much more than a political status. It is the most pervasive kind of cruelty that can be exercised against a human being.
Human always moves, and from one place to another, and those changing location and move made our civilization become a much more intelligent, much more tolerant, with great understanding of humanity.
Human Flow was filmed in 23 locations around the world, from the Middle East to Europe to Africa and even North America. 200 crew members took part in the epic and much anticipated film. The story of mass human migration is one that I can relate to. Born in Beijing, the artist was displaced as a child during China's Cultural Revolution.
My personal history very much relate to the current situation. My father was exiled the year I was born, and he spent 20 years in this exile camps in a very remote area. I grew up in that kind of condition. That helps me to be identified with the people I'm filming.
Ai is famous for his massive art installations, which often include social and political messages. Like Good Fences Make Good Neighbors, a series of huge sculptures set up around New York just last week. The exhibit also comments on the global migrant crisis. Human Flow is now playing in cinemas across the United States. Margit, I-24 News.
That the world is shrinking, and people from different religions, different cultures are going to have to learn to live with each other.
And Maya's with us now. Maya, this artist, Ai Weiwei, really focuses a lot of his work. Obviously, this is a documentary, but a lot of big public artworks trying to drive the world's attention to these refugee communities, the underserved, that the world usually doesn't pay much attention to.
Yeah, he's one of the most well-known artists of our time, one of the biggest living artists. And he's very famous for very politically activist art, these huge installations. Before, what he used to focus on was China and its human rights record and its anti-democratic practices. And he was actually arrested by the Chinese government in 2011, famously or infamously. They took away his passport. So what he did is he moved to Berlin, and now he practices his art from Berlin, and so he's focusing on the refugee and the migrant crisis. His latest project is this film, which everyone has been talking about for a very long time, and also that project in New York, the Good Fences Make Good Neighbors, which he's commenting on President Donald Trump's immigration policies in the U.S. vis-a-vis Mexico, and etc.
Your piece mentioned, about hundreds of staff members and crew members worked on this project. Where were they filming? Where did they get the opportunity to be up close and personal with the refugees?
So Ai Weiwei he really invested heavily in this film. He traveled across the world in so many different locations. He had 25 different film crews, so he didn't work with the same people every time. He had a lot of drone footage to get let people see the scale of the migration, so people could see things from a different perspective. And he went to the Mexico-U.S. border, for example. He chronicled what's going on over there with Trump's proposed border wall. He went to Iraq. He went to Gaza. He spoke to Palestinians. He went to Jordanian refugee camps in Lebanon, not just in the Middle East, though. He also went to Kenya and Africa. He went to Malaysia. So he tried to get a sense of all the different flows of human migrants and refugees across the world. Many different continents, and we see there that this was a Venice Film Selection. I mean, what kind of response has it gotten? What kind of acclaim? So generally, it's been very favorable acclaim. Most film critics and audience members are saying that it's an amazing film if you want to learn about the migrant crisis, not just in one location, but over overall, it's a really good film to see. It's 2.5 hours almost, so it's quite long and it's quite intense, and there's very heartbreaking and emotional images. So some people are saying that it's a little bit numbing after a while because it's such a long movie. So it's very hard to stay connected towards the end because it's very emotional. But overall, very good positive feedback. They're saying the visuals and the cinematography are amazing.
You mentioned a lot of drone footage and just really an up-close and personal look at some of the devastation, the heartbreak, the tragedy of a refugee crisis affecting tens of millions around the world.
Millions, yeah.
All right, Maya, thank you so much for bringing us this story to the